Hey guys, the pastor with no answer himself with somewhat of a froggy voice. Sorry about that, but I wanted to say hello to all of our faithful listeners. It's great to have you back again. I think I'm just saying that though because I don't know who's actually listening to this right now. I'm actually in a room by myself talking into a microphone, and if somebody walked in, I'd be a little embarrassed. But I wanted to bring some attention to some of you faithful listeners that also faithfully give to this podcast. It's the Pastor with No Answers patrons. And you can track this little community down by going to pastorwithnoanswers.com, and you'll see a little button that says contribute. That'll take you to the Patreon page, and then you'll get the information you need and see the perks and all of that. But it's always fun to support a podcast that you're getting something out of. But obviously, podcasting and how it works, you don't have to pay a dime, and your listenership is valuable. But I wanted to say thank you to Jonathan Cornwell, Scott Swan. Was Swan. Sorry, my voice is so froggy I couldn't say Swan. And Nathan Bowman. Thank you guys for being recent converts, and I hope that the Lord does not hold it against you. But I appreciate it, and this episode is a whole lot of fun because it's 4 friends hanging out. One of them is my best friend, my wife, the one that I was married to, and we're so close because we got through so many ups and downs in our marriage, and that's actually what we're talking about is marriage, because we've got the 2 hosts of The Anatomy of Marriage, Seth and Melanie Studley, old-time friends. I met Seth actually back in 1998, so we've known each other for a long time. I hope you enjoy us acting a fool and getting real about marriage.
Dark and late here.
Oh, yeah.
I want to see your kitchen.
That daylight savings time. Oh, well.
I see a little bit of it.
I don't think we can.
I know. If we were on my laptop, I could walk around with it, but we're not.
All right, so why don't you guys... And Priscilla, let me see your levels real quick. If you put the microphone right here, just keep it right here. Talk. I can't see your levels unless you're talking. I didn't mean the level of the microphone. Feels like, here's the level.
Do you see it? Hey, Joey.
Check 1, 2. Okay, cool. Keep it right there if you don't mind. All right, so why don't you guys say, hi, this is Seth and Melanie.
We can't see your heads.
Oh, sorry.
I can't even see ourselves.
Can't you see?
What do we look like?
Can't you see yourselves? I mean, there we go.
There.
All right, so
We're so special. Oh, I see.
Seth, you can say something like, hey, this is Seth Studley, and then Melanie, and you can say, and Melanie Studley, or vice versa, and then you guys say,
Sure.
and you're listening to the Pastor with No Answers, and then I'll take it from there.
Okay.
All right.
What's up, guys? This is Seth Studley.
And Melanie Studley.
And you're listening to Pastor with
No Answers.
Yeah, awesome. Good to have y'all on. And
Nice.
Priscilla's here too.
Hey.
It's like a double date. It's a virtual double date, and we're all hanging out.
Except we're 3,000 miles away.
That's true. 3,000 miles away. So you guys, I want to talk marriage, but before we do that, give our listeners a snapshot of your podcast, because some people are listening and they have no idea who you guys are. I think it's probably a small percentage, but tell folks about season 1 of your podcast, and then let's talk a little bit about marriage. So season 1 and season 2, give us a little scoop.
Well, the name of our podcast is Anatomy of Marriage Podcast, and what's it about, Mel?
Season 1,
the penis
we took,
and the vagina and
the
ovaries.
It's the ultimate vajayjay cast.
Because marriage
What do you
is
call
all
it, Priscilla? The
marriage
Hoopy
is all
Lala
about
cast?
sex. I mean, that's anatomy, and marriage is about sex.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Well, that's
Anatomy of Wang was our first choice for a name, but we changed it.
That was taken already.
No, but season 1 follows our journey of almost getting a divorce 8 years ago. And in the process, like, we talked to therapists and neuroscientists and all these different people to figure out like what we were doing wrong, what we could change, what things we didn't know and needed to know, and all that stuff. But season 1 is just crazy. Like, it was insane to make. And
one of the kickers about season 1 and why we wanted to make a podcast is I'm an actual licensed marriage and family therapist.
Yeah.
But he's just really bad.
And that was a really bad one, right? I wasn't good in our own marriage. So Melanie and I, we had some stuff that we went through that we wanted to share, and me being a therapist gives it a whole different perspective. And we thought, well, what could we talk about that we know best? And that was one of the things. And we share our story of craziness, of communication, of sex, of domestic violence, of
you guys were both
just
suicidal
everything.
at one point, right?
both
mental health
suicidal,
issues.
mental health issues.
And at one point, like at our lowest point, I had actually gave Seth a black eye. Like
Yeah.
it was really, really terrible. And we had babies in the house. It was a lot. So that was season 1. And then season 2 is the tools of marriage is what we're kind of calling the second season. And it's getting into the practical things that you can do and how they apply to different people's stories.
Mm-hmm.
But because season 1 was like just an introduction to talking about marriage in a new way. Like getting a vocabulary to talk about things like domestic violence without just shutting down. And so, that's
and
what it is.
we also interviewed, like Melanie said, a bunch of people that have written New York Times best-selling books, authors, other therapists who are in the very top of their field.
Yeah.
And we also interviewed our friends, just normal people who have gone through divorces, who have gone through other crazy stuff, communication issues. So it's a hodgepodge of our crazy story, professional advice, and then other normal people's stories. So it's a very narrative, interactive style podcast. And like Melanie was saying, season 2 right now, it's called The Tools of Marriage. So now we're digging in. We're still using our personal story and also digging in some real interventions. So each podcast now has, and you know what? Here's X amount of things that you can do tonight to improve your marriage. Try this out. Take a look. Ask yourself these questions. And we also create PDF files on our website for couples to actually use to improve
that sounded weird.
communication.
We create PDF files. Does that sound good?
Well, no,
resources.
You
Resources is the word.
Sorry.
You guys are actually answering a lot of questions that I was going to get to, so this is awesome. Like first of all, a lot of people overlook just how much good comes out of hearing people's story. Like y'all told your story in season 1, and everybody wants to go let me teach people about marriage and let me teach principles and all. And I know that's what you guys are getting into, and that's great. But people fail to realize, oh my gosh, just hearing someone's story is super helpful. It makes, I'll just speak from first person. It makes us feel less alone to hear somebody else that went through stuff that we're going through or went through and all that. And so that really is season 1, is basically y'all are telling a story, right? I mean, and now it sounds like y'all are moving into more of a, hey, we've told our story. We're not invincible. We've gone through some crazy stuff, and now let's help each other out is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and in season 2, we continue to tell stories. They're just other couples' stories.
Yeah.
We interview therapists, and they will tell the story of their marriage, or inspirational speakers, and they share what their journey has been like of getting over divorce, and now they're engaged again or whatever, and stuff like that. So yeah, we're just done telling our particular story.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Go ahead, Priscilla.
Oh, no, I was just going to ask you a really quick question, or almost like a relatable thing. Whenever Joey and I do like counseling together, like if we counsel somebody else, I almost always feel like after whoever that person leaves, I feel like some of the things I said, I was like, I needed to hear that for myself. Do you guys ever feel like that?
Yeah.
Because you're kind of, I know you're not calling yourselves experts, but this is like what you're spending your time on. Seth, you're like licensed professional. And then, but you're doing stories and talking about it with other people it seems like it almost keeps you sharp on your own marriage. Do you feel like it's helpful for you to do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you have to always talk about it and always apply, like you're applying it more because you're talking about more. It's like all over your life. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Literally, I finished making an episode today that aired today, and it's all about adult attachment disorder. And it was like, and at the end of the episode, I say that this episode only was created because of the fact that our audience keeps us in this space, and we have to like dig into our own marriage because our audience is asking us questions that makes us turn to each other and say, gosh, I mean, really think like, are we actually doing this? And is this a thing that we're even good at? And so the episode today, it sounds so lame, like adult attachment disorder sounds like the most boring episode on the planet, but
not
it is
for me. I love
amazing.
that stuff.
Yeah, you should listen to it. Seth like did a whole thing by himself. He recorded like 30 minutes of this thing by himself, and then I kind of respond to it. We both cry. I don't know. You didn't cry, did you? I cried in the episode. So get your tissues out.
It's interesting, but so imagine you're exactly right, Priscilla. Like talking to other people who actually have New York Times best-selling books, who go on speaking tours, talking to real couples about these things only makes me go, holy crap, okay, what are we doing and or not doing?
What do we need to be doing?
What do we need to be doing? A handful of times it's like, we're really good at that, so that feels good. You know, we're not where this other couple is. We were there, but we've worked through it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it keeps you on your toes, and it's humbling, and it's convicting, I guess.
Yeah. And we don't like the term expert. We prefer the term Lord and Lady. We're the Lord and Lady of marriage.
That's a new one. I like that.
I love that. That is so good.
I was counseling a couple last week, and it was one of those deals where you could just feel how hard their marriage was. I mean, just imagine you guys in the middle of y'all's trials at the depths of them, and what it would feel like to the therapist that y'all walk into. I mean, you can just feel it, and it's just such a burdensome feeling. And I just was, when I'm in those situations, and this is just kind of my style, and it sounds like I'm bragging on myself, maybe I am, but I feel like I have to start with, hey, before we even talk about this, you have to know that I feel like my wife and I just came out of a 6-year hard struggle of marriage that we are just getting out of. So most of what I'm going to tell you are things that I have just learned or are learning or mistakes I'm still making. And I think that if people kind of lead into conversations like that, which is really the only authentic way of approaching marriage, because I don't care who you are, how long you've been married, how many books you've read. I mean, one of the most gifted counselors that Priscilla and I get counseling from, him and his wife still struggle. I mean, it's just marriage. Yeah. It's like marriage. Part of it is struggling. So it is kind of frustrating, I think, when some couples see themselves as, oh, yeah, now we can just talk to anybody and we have all the answers and all that. That's why I love y'all's approach.
I like your voice you're using.
Oh yeah, that's my imitation of anybody. I mean, here's something kind of interesting that happened to Priscilla and I. So we recorded an episode of Pastor with No Answers, just the two of us, and we kind of talked through spiritual stuff and just where we're at spiritually, where we were, and some parenting things and that sort of thing. But I remember at the very end of the episode, I felt compelled, and it was kind of random. I get that.
It was
and
very
you, Seth, you remember Andy Chrissinger? He reached out after the episode. Ben Huntington and I had lunch after a couple days afterwards, and he asked me about it. I had people that were Facebooking me and everything, and it was because at the end of the episode, I said, look, I just feel like I want to say this. I said, a lot of you are listening to us and you're thinking, oh man, their marriage is so awesome. They can just laugh and cut up and have fun together and talk spiritual things and they're growing together and all this stuff. And I was just like, we're actually in a hard time of our marriage. This was earlier in the year. And I feel like we were just coming out of that hole. And my friends that reached out to check on us, totally, I would have done the same thing. But there are a lot of people that were just like, we're just feeling so bad for you guys, and man, you guys have just been on our heart and burdened and all that stuff. And I understand all of that, and I get their motivation, and it's all good. But I was thinking about how crazy is it that when people hear we are going through a hard time, they automatically equate that to, oh, that's a bad thing. Like that's
Right.
Well, it is.
Right.
Well, it's a bad. It doesn't feel fun to go through.
It doesn't feel fun, but marriage, that's what marriage is about.
I
is
think
going
maybe
through
they're
hard
like
times.
worried it's almost ending, which wasn't the case.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, there are some people they're worried about separation, divorce, and all that stuff.
But
and
no
it's
one
just
reached
like,
out to me. They all reached out to you. They must have thought I was the one to blame.
No, it's Joey. Joey had the problem. You were okay. They were like, brother, we need to talk.
Intervention.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. When people write us questions like daily, and people are sending us kind of encouraging things, and or sending us their story. And one of the first things that I find myself responding with is, and it's usually like they're telling me, we're going through this really hard time. We struggle with this and this and that. And I always am like, this is so exciting, which sounds like the wrong thing to say, but it's exciting because that means that couple is taking the steps that it takes to walk through the next season of their marriage.
Right.
And that's the starting point of all of the good things, And yeah, some stuff is just super hard and whatever, but that is life, And so it's weird because I'm with you on that where
there's no.
I'm glad I didn't need to finish that sentence. So go ahead.
Oh, dang
Finish.
it. Sorry. I was just acting like Toby or Joey.
Yeah, thanks. Anyway, no, I don't know what I was going to say. Go.
Sorry, no. There's never growth.
You're a bad husband, Seth.
I guess. No, I'm awesome. There's rarely growth in the easy stuff, right? So hard times is an opportunity for growth, and if we can look at hard situations or shitty situations like that, then you can go, where do I need to grow here? What is the next opportunity that's literally being laid out before me, instead of thinking, oh, everything's terrible, she's crazy, or I'm whatever. If we can change that mindset around, and so we talked to this rabbi for one of the episodes, and he was hilarious. What was his book called? The Intimacy of Joy. And
the joy of intimacy.
That
joy
does
of
sound
intimacy.
hilarious. That is really funny.
It was a real cut up.
No, he was. He's like this 80-year-old
He's
Jewish
70 years old.
Jewish rabbi from New York, from the Bronx, and he was like, men and women, they shouldn't even be together. And he was just like hilarious. But he told this story.
He told
this story about a lobster.
No. Oh, jeez. You
was a
are
lobster.
really mixing up. Just edit that out. That is not him. That was a YouTube video of a rabbi telling a story about a lobster.
But the guy told us about
he
it, though,
didn't.
right?
No, he did not.
What's happening?
Sorry, that kid.
Rabbi Lobster.
All right, tell the
Start
story.
over.
Tell the story because it's important.
There is a video of a rabbi on YouTube.
Hey
not
guys,
the
we're
one
gonna
we
we're gonna ha-
interviewed.
we're gonna have to wrap it up there. So this is Seth and
Dang it.
Let me.
Hey guys, we're totally gonna air this.
Yeah, I know.
So okay, there is a rabbi talking about a lobster and how they grow, and the way that a lobster grows is it feels uncomfortable. Its shell becomes too tight, but the only way it knows to go cast off its old shell is by the discomfort that it feels.
Yes.
So it uses its discomfort as a signal for growth. And the
Oh,
guy's
that's
whole
so
point
good.
is, as people, we should do the same thing. Anytime that we're looking around and thinking, I feel miserable, or I'm upset, or this is stressful, what's the deal? It's not like I need to go hide and stop growing. It's I need to grow somewhere. What is it? I don't know, but I need to grow. So that's what he was trying to say.
You literally told that story 100% better than I could have.
I
And
always
I'm not
do.
joking.
And I'm not joking.
I am not joking on that.
You know, I will say this about you guys though, and I think Priscilla and I can say something similar to this. But even as hard of what we have gone through recently, when I hear your story, and I think Matt and Toby may have said similar things, but it's like that's the craziest marriage ever that did not end in a divorce. Like if you guys are telling your story, anyone in their right mind would be like, oh, and they're divorced now. So I am curious, do you guys feel like for the rest of your marriage you're kind of in a good situation because you're just like, I don't think we could go through a darker time, obviously minus something happening to a kid of yours, but as far as your relationship, do you kind of feel like, my gosh, it can't get any harder than what it was? We're kind of not in the clear, but not intimidated by marriage as much as maybe some people would be that had not gone through that. Does that make sense?
No.
Yeah, it makes sense, yes,
makes
but no,
sense.
we don't feel that way.
No.
And
Gotcha.
the reason that we say that is that even so, like I said, the episode I just aired today is about a huge, not argument, but like we literally days ago were like, why are we still married? What's the point if we can't be in relationship in a way that feels good to one another and blah, blah, blah. Like we should just call it quits and whatever. Because we have so much to learn still. And there's a weird thing that the first thing that came to my head when you said that was, so historically throughout our marriage, I've been willing to do whatever it takes to make it work. So I've been like, when we fight, I'm the one who brings the like, okay, let's make up, let's have peace here. Let's find where we are in love the most and start there. And Seth has not been that way. Mm-hmm. And this has been something that has been really, really challenging. And
so how has Seth
current.
been? Just kind of throwing in the towel and what do you mean by that?
No, not throwing in the towel. Like and this all has to do, and we talk about this a lot in the podcast about family of origin stuff. Like you have a big argument, you get really pissed, you say mean things, and then a day later or 6 hours later, you make up and you want everything to be normal again. Right,
but you don't ever acknowledge like that you should change that pattern. He just
but
thought
you say
you say a bunch of mean crap. You leave. You know whatever.
You say you're sorry
later
and later and stuff, and then things are cool for a while, and then but that style from family of origin stuff was not Melanie's family of origin. And we try to say this all the time in the podcast, like you were saying before. We are not the marriage experts, because one thing that I like struggled with, and this was like in church too, I always thought, oh, the pastor, they've got it together. They know, they're the expert, I'm just whatever. And I used to look at different people's marriages that way too, like, oh my goodness, they're just solid and this and that and whatever. But that is not that's the biggest lie ever. I think, and like, it's never going to be more just on the other side of the fence or this. It's where you are and when you are, if that makes sense. So our marriage, there's a million things to work on, because I believe if you're not growing spiritually, physically, emotionally, psychologically, then there's something, then you're either stagnant or you're moving backwards, right? So like our marriage, no, it's not perfect, and it never will be perfect. If it was perfect, that probably would be boring and nothing to work on, right? So I think that every hardship is another opportunity for us to grow closer to who we are as our own people, and then closer together. So
yeah,
but we
just because we went through all that stuff, no, we're not in the clear. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
That's.
But we do get better at it. Like we get better at arguing. We get better at understanding and reading one another well, and that's, I think, where the importance really truly lies. Is like, I don't need to treat Seth the way that I treated him, 10 years ago. I can grow and change that behavior, and when I do that, we can. Even if there is conflict, because there will be conflict, we can navigate through it so much easier, so much better, so much more lovingly, and together,
And the cool thing is we're using our own interventions, some interventions that we made up, some that I've made up, like in actual client sessions, and then some other bits and pieces. But the things and resources that we create and put out there, we actually use.
Like it's hilarious. Like we open up our computers and use this. It's a PDF called the clearing structures, and it sounds so lame, but we have gotten into arguments where I'm like, we are not speaking. I'm getting my laptop and we're going to use the clearing structure, and it works. It's unreal. And it's the lamest thing. It's the last thing you want to do, but it's the first thing you should do, really.
Yeah.
It's funny, but it works.
I have a quick question for you guys. So, because you guys were so close to divorce, and the reason I'm asking you this is I feel since it was pretty hard for us the last however many years, Joey said he's better at numbers than me. I have no idea. It just felt long and hard. But I remember when we were first in ministry, and then someone would come to us for counseling and brink of divorce kind of thing. And oh my gosh, especially if they were friends of ours, like we had become friends with them through the church and we loved them so much and we're praying for them. And I really was like believing, and they ended up getting a divorce. And it like completely devastated me. And I couldn't understand how they couldn't work it out or whatever. And then we go through whatever we went through. And I remember thinking, oh my, I see how divorce happens. I see it.
Yeah.
Because I never see that for us. But the times it was really, really hard, I was like, are we going to be okay? Like, is this going to be okay? And I feel like that sort of experience has helped me be I feel sorry for anyone that came to us for counseling when we were green, because I feel like I had such limited understanding of what they were going through, if that makes any sense. I was way overly optimistic, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, how do you guys look at it? I feel like you guys could be such a champion for people that are really close to divorce, because you can give them hope, but and maybe even know when not to be too optimistic about it and acknowledge. I don't know. It's a super long thing that I just said, but I just feel like because of what you've gone through, it seems like other people talking divorce maybe is less scary and you have a different perspective on it. Like, how does that look for you guys?
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that we did this mini documentary that just came out yesterday, actually. And that's one of the things that I say in the documentary is like, there was an actual time in our marriage where I hated Seth. I didn't just dislike him. I didn't just kind of think he was weird or dumb. I really was like, get out of my life. Like, I never want to see you again, kind of a thing. I really hated him. And there's you could never have convinced me when we were like first dating and first married that I would ever be like, I would have been like, if you had told me, oh yeah, in 5 years you're gonna hate his guts, you're gonna give him a black eye, I'd be like, I will never do that. Our love is too strong. I'm so amazing and he's so amazing, right? I would have never believed that I could feel the things that I felt about him. And having gone through that and worked through it's like a labor, like this, you know, the struggling with your own internal thoughts about your husband and how he relates to your children and how he relates to you and how he relates to your marriage, and having to work through that, like pick apart every tiny thing and flip over every stone, and to realize like, oh, I do want to stay with him and this is what it's going to take. All of that and all of those experiences really do set us up to be like, we get it. We've totally been there. We've absolutely been there. And so, yeah, I do think I can't imagine, like I could not imagine us giving any marital advice before we went through what we went through. I just can't, we didn't have any, you know? Like,
so I definitely feel way better equipped, like not as green as you guys did, like you were saying, Priscilla. Like we can actually speak some wisdom and give insight, especially to younger married couples. Like, listen, I was exactly where you were, and a lot of guys feel this way, or a lot of wives feel this way.
And let me cut you off for just a moment. The thing that I think too is that a lot of times when there are couples that are like,
wait, Seth, come back. Seth, come back to the microphone.
He will not. I will not let that happen.
Go for it.
But when there are couples that look perfect and pristine and clean and holy, and they're so kind to one another,
Joel Osteen.
I want to throw a tomato at their face.
it's like there's no. I could not relate to those people when we were going through everything. I needed someone who was like transparent to death with their pain and their suffering and the struggles that they have. I needed Joyce Meyer. I love that woman. I will never stop saying how much I love Joyce Meyer. But so that was like, you know, I don't know. I don't know. I cut you off, and I'm proud.
No, I don't remember what I was saying, except for this may sound weird, not even right, but there was this quote from Vincent van Gogh that I read a long time ago, and he said that we first must experience what we want to express. And of course, he was an artist and painter, so I think that he was talking about it that way. But that quote just really resonated with me because we experienced what we experienced. Now we can express that in a way more healthy way. And our number one goal of the whole entire podcast, anatomyofmarriagepodcast.com, is that's not even the website. I just messed up.
You said that wrong. It's anatomyofmarriage.com.
Right. Is the whole purpose. We want to express that we can help people, that their struggle isn't really isolated. Like I think, Joey, you said it at the top of the podcast. You said, yeah, when you can share your story, or when you hear other people's story, what that does is normalizes it.
Yeah.
And especially in places like the church, where everything tries to be polished, and if you say a cuss word, you're going to, make somebody stumble, or who knows what other crazy stuff we used to think or whatever. But who really resonates with that? Like really deep down, behind closed doors, you see these people who are super polished and pretty and not really sharing much at all.
Yeah.
That just doesn't go a long way. And some of the number one comments that we've had has been, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for being vulnerable.
Yeah.
That really opened my eyes up to what I'm going through. Whoa, you guys do that too? That's crazy. Now I can talk about it. Oh my goodness.
Isn't it crazy that like the four of us, I mean, we haven't spent tons of time together, but we've kind of seen our circle of friends grow up together. And you said this, Seth, and it just blew my mind for a second. Like, we have older marriages that now we can talk to the youngsters. It's crazy. And I will say this, that, kind of my struggle is downplaying the help that I can give people, because I'm shitty and I don't have my stuff together.
There's your voice.
But I am actually learning to own the fact that we are older and we do have wisdom, even if that wisdom is telling other people that no one has it all together. That's wisdom.
Right.
Like, there's young people that need to hear that. Like, seriously? Like, even couples married after 40 years, they don't have it together. And it's nuts. Like, I'm having to rewire my brain almost and be like, no, it's okay to be like, I've got some life experience now. I got some years under my belt,
Yeah.
The thing that makes me think of the imagery that comes to my mind is like if you're running like a race together and there's someone way far at the very back end, but then there's someone at the finish line. That guy in the middle is closer to the guy at the very, very end, and he can help the guy at the end better than the guy at the finish line can.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? So if I'm 30 feet in front of you and I reach my hand back to you, I'm more helpful than the guy who's 500 feet in front of you. Right? And that, I think, makes a lot of sense to me, and that we don't need, and I don't know, that's what I think when people get wrong with marriage advice is like, I don't need someone who is 60 years away from their hardest part of their marriage to tell me how to do marriage. I need someone who is like 6 weeks away from it,
Yeah, well, and then
some
you talk about
encouragement.
the 30 feet person, and then you help them along, and then you get tired, and then they help you.
Yeah.
Like, we just
Exactly.
keep learning from each other. Like, sometimes the one thing that is not my favorite all the time, not that it's a bad thing, but not my favorite all the time in the church is go find a mentor, get yourself under someone, I think that's good, but I think that there also is learning from each other. It does not matter your age or if you're more experienced. Like, sometimes it's just seasons. Like, it's not just a linear thing. Like, sometimes it's just a season. Right. And I think that we can position ourselves in a way where we can learn from someone that used to be behind us,
Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about what's going to be coming out in season 2, but give 2 specific examples of like whet people's appetite for marriages that, let's just say, for marriages that are struggling, and people are going to tune in and be like, yeah, let's listen to this podcast together. What's 2 take homes that you can tell them that they're going to come away with, and you can go ahead and send them away with it now.
Yeah. Okay. I'll give him one. You give him
You old
the
school
next one.
ballers, you.
Oh yeah. This will give you time to think of it. I believe that one major theme in season 2 is that we don't have it together, and we are willing to work hard at it because marriage is worth it, at least for us, right? And we talk a lot about growth mindset and what you can do to improve or grow your growth mindset, and that it actually takes work. Like movies and even books and these fairy tale ideals of marriage are absolutely not true. And I'm not just saying that like, oh, it's not like the movies. No. It's like take everything that you think you know about marriage and subtract 99% of it and then say to yourself, I am going to have to work a lot harder than I ever dreamed possible. However, it's worth it. So we want to give people the tools for that. That's my one. What's yours?
Wait. I want you to say yours, but I do want to say something with.
They hear you.
Sorry. I was like even getting into the computer. So Seth, what you just said, not that I have a question about it, but I do like the way that you said that about the movies is so true. And I think for a person like me, who's somewhat of a romantic, and I I love adventure. I love romance. Sometimes those movies can be bad for me. You know what I mean? Because it makes me long for something that's not realistic. But there's something in me that still believes that could be real. Does that make sense? Do you guys
yeah, and I think that it can be real, but it's probably not going to look like the movies. And this idea came to me. Like me and Melanie love to travel. We really like to travel, right? So we're kind of creating, or have created, the times that we've traveled like overseas and stuff, our own romantic thing, right? And
is it your
romantic
burger?
Movies. No,
That's
Big
so
Mac?
romantic.
Big Mac. Hey, that could
That
be
was hilarious.
That could really be easily in
Romance
like
the burger.
some rom-com or something.
That was
really
really
where,
funny.
Where the guy or the girl takes a picture and makes
don't lose
sure
track.
that the and this is their special thing and blah blah blah. So I guess what I was saying is, it's not going to look like the movies, but I don't want you to deny that romantic, adventuresome spirit that you have in you. But what you can do is co-create it with Joey or with your partner and make it real life together, because what a movie isn't going to show you is one of us getting food poisoning in Spain and then like having to catch the next flight at 1 a.m. or something like that. But guess what? That's our own adventure. You know, does that make sense? I know that sounds weird.
Doesn't sound weird.
Yeah.
I just think that's good.
F. Tom Hanks, F. Meg Ryan, F. Ryan Gosling, and Rachel McAdams. F. Who are some other popular couples?
I don't want to play that game.
All right, Melanie, what's another take home?
The thing that I thought right off the bat was the takeaway for me in all of this, and the thing that is the most important throughout the whole podcast, is the community that we're trying to build. People aren't alone. Like, couples aren't alone. And even people who aren't dating someone yet, who want to learn about themselves and what it's like to be married and how they can, how can I learn about this thing now so that in 7 years when I'm married, it's not going to be a big freaking deal. And it's the community that means the most to me. How we build it up, how we support one another, how each episode can be talked about now outside of the podcast and with your family or with your friends. That to me is what's exciting and what I hope people gravitate towards, because this is just like an invitation to open up conversation.
Absolutely.
And that's really exciting when people start jamming out on the things that we're talking about that resonate so deeply with them. And this is a good segue, because we're trying to build like different Facebook groups and men's groups and men's groups. No. But maybe this segues into, I think, something else we're going to talk about, Joey, the house church stuff.
Yeah.
Or is that a totally different thing?
Well, no, but before we do that, do you guys ever worry that you're going to have to make a podcast called Anatomy of a Divorce?
It's sicking me out.
It's sicking me out.
Did you hear the
Freaking me
wheezing?
out.
It was
Yes,
so much
yeah.
wheezing.
I feel like I'm gonna faint. I'm
I
kinda
know,
scared
you're-
right now.
I bet you do.
Your face is red. So scary.
No, that is. Let's well, real quick. Is it possible, you guys? And if it's not, we'll go ahead and edit this. We should probably edit me asking you guys this in anyway, but I probably won't.
Don't,
Is it
it's
possible to show people a quick 5-minute clip? Like, can we insert that later so people can kind of be like, "Ooh, that sounds good. I'm gonna have to go over there
Yes.
and listen to that." All right, so we'll leave you guys with a little clip of this. And yeah, Seth mentioned that, and actually, we're super excited about this. I'll call it an experiment, really, because Priscilla and I have been figuring out with another group of people how to have church community outside the normal traditional approach on Sunday mornings with the church building and the worship music to start off and all that sort of thing. And Seth and Melanie, you guys are going to do the same sort of thing in the Seattle area. Y'all are what, 25 minutes from the city?
About
25, 30 minutes from downtown, yeah.
Yeah. So most of our listeners, you've heard us talk house church a lot. We did a whole episode on it. If you want to hear a little bit more about what we're doing, it's on episode 125. But what's the email address that people can write if they want to check out you guys and hang out with y'all?
Well, okay, so for the house church, inquiries about that is tsethstudley@gmail.com. That's just my email. It's SETHSTUDLEY @gmail.com
Sweet.
for that.
Yep.
Well,
Yep,
I did want
and-
to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Priscilla. Sorry.
No, because I think it's like a. Well, okay. Now I'm laughing at
your
myself because it's not even a question. I was just gonna tell you guys. It's funny. We were all in Nashville together, and I barely even talked to you guys about your podcast at all. And we spent a decent amount of time together, but we were just all having fun and laughing about other stuff. But I feel bad. I didn't even tell you. I did want to tell you guys I love y'all's podcast. I think it's really good. I have not listened to the whole first season, but when Joey told me when you guys were first coming out with it, I was waiting for it to come out. And I loved it. And I have memories of listening to it. So sometimes when you're referencing to it, I'm like, oh, I remember that one. Because I was up at the top of my ladder because we sold and bought a house last. And I was listening. I listened to all of it during that time. So when I was doing all these projects around the house, I kind of listened to your podcast. And I didn't get to finish it because then we moved, and then I haven't been listening to podcasts in a while. But it was so good. I love the origin of family. I thought that was so good. And I really think that's so important to listen to for a lot of people, because I think sometimes we are super individual. We are so influenced by where we came from, and you guys have such different backgrounds. And you're good at storytelling too. And Melanie, you're just an artist, so I just think it's beautifully put together too. So I just want to say that.
The production is off the charts.
Thank you.
Don't think just because these guys are on Pastor with No Answers, their podcast is like Pastor with No Answers.
Yeah, we have no production at all.
Their podcast is really good.
Thank you.
All right, well, Seth and Melanie Studley, thank you guys, and it's at anatomyofmarriage.com where people can start following y'all.
Yeah.
Yep, that's the website. On Facebook is at Anatomy of Marriage.
And
Instagram at Anatomy of Marriage. If people have questions, they can email us at anatomyofmarriage@gmail.com. And we actually read and respond to emails.
Yeah,
and comments.
we
That's our favorite
actually
thing.
answer questions personally to people who send in emails, but then we also answer questions in the podcast in our Q&A episodes. So
I bill people later because I'm a therapist,
He
but
doesn't.
I don't tell them
He's
up
joking.
front, so they just have to
All
owe me
right.
money. It's cool.
Well,
That's
love
how
you
it
guys. Don't y'all go getting into divorce now.
My name is Melanie, and my husband Seth and I set out to investigate marriage when ours almost failed 7 years ago.
tell me the time when you told your mom that you wished I would cheat on you.
That's me interviewing Seth about some of the lowest points in our marriage.
You were just furious.
And that's Seth.
I remember I said, no, it's not mine, and you were yelling. And then you tried to kick me. You came around and just punched me square in the face.
Needless to say, this time in our lives was really, really terrible. We were on the brink of divorce and trying to hold on to each other while simultaneously pushing each other away. We wanted to heal and be happy, but we were so broken. We decided to do something a little unorthodox with the hope that we could save what little was left. We needed honesty. No more hiding, no more pretending things were okay. We needed to be fully real with ourselves and with each other. But it was so hard.